Growing up was tough, with Dad always on my back. Mom passed away when I was little, so it was just the two of us, and Dad took the whole single parenting gig to another level. He had rules for everything. No hanging out with the kids who liked to race cars, no wild hair colors, and studying had to be my top priority. "Jenna, those kids are trouble, you hear me? Stay away from them," Dad would warn me, his voice stern, whenever he saw me chatting with the neighborhood thrill seekers. "But Dad, they're just having fun. We're not kids anymore." I'd shoot back, trying to stand my ground. "It ain't about age, it's about making smart choices. And dyeing your hair like a traffic light ain't smart," he'd say, squinting his eyes as if he could scare the rebellion out of me. I wasn't having any of it. "Maybe I want to stand out," I'd retort, my voice just as firm. Dad wasn't just a stickler at home. He had a reputation around town too, always preaching about responsibility and hard work. He meant well, but to me, it felt suffocating. Every time we clashed, which was often, I'd pack a bag and storm over to Aunt Marie's place. She was Dad's younger sister, lived a few blocks away, and was the exact opposite of him, easygoing and always with a smile. "Aunt Marie, why can't he just chill out? It's like he's stuck in some ancient times," I'd complain as soon as I dropped onto her couch. She'd chuckle, handing me a soda, before sitting down next to me. "Jenna, your dad's just scared. He lost your mom, and he's afraid of losing you too. But he sees the world his way, black and white. But that's just it. I'm not him. I need some color in my life, you know?" I'd say, popping the can open. Marie would nod, her expression softening. "He does go overboard. But he's not wrong about everything. Give it time, you'll see some of his points." That was Aunt Marie, always trying to bridge the gap between Dad and me. But back then, I couldn't see it. All I knew was that I wanted out. So, as soon as high school was over, I grabbed my chance. Thanks to my grades, I landed a scholarship and went off to college, leaving my hometown, and Dad, behind. College was freedom. For the first time, I made my own decisions without anyone looming over me. I dyed my hair purple, stayed out late, and, yes, even got involved with a group that loved street racing. But I kept my head in the books. I wasn't about to waste the scholarship or the opportunities one had fought so hard for. After 4 years of hard work and a fair share of fun, I graduated with a degree in accounting and a job offer from a respected firm in the city. My boss, Mr. Thompson, was a tough guy but fair, much like Dad and his expectations, but without the personal judgment. When I met Mike, it felt like hitting the jackpot. It was at a casual hangout with some friends from work. He was there with a buddy who knew one of my colleagues. Mike had that easy charm, a quick smile, and an infectious laugh that pulled you right in. We got talking, and it turned out we had a ton in common, both mad about classic rock, both foodies, and both into old movies. "Ever seen Casablanca?" he asked, eyes lighting up as he took a sip of his beer. "Are you kidding? Here's looking at you, kid is my go-to toast." I laughed, thrilled to meet someone who shared my quirky interests. We hit it off immediately, and before long, we were inseparable. Dating Mike was a whirlwind of dinner dates, movie nights, and lazy weekends just lounging around. 6 months later, we were married. It felt right, like everything was falling into place. The first year was bliss. We talked about everything, made decisions together, shared our dreams and our bank accounts. I felt like I finally had the partnership I craved, equal, open, just perfect. But then, things started to change. It began subtly. One night, as I was getting ready to meet some friends for drinks after work, Mike frowned. "You're going out again? You know, you've been kinda busy lately," he said, his tone more accusing than curious. "Just catching up with the gang. It's been ages." I replied, trying to keep the mood light. "Yeah, but maybe you should chill on the outings. We could use some us time," he insisted, not really asking but telling. I paused, a bit thrown off. "Sure, we can plan something for the weekend?" It didn't stop there. Mike's suggestions became rules. He started expressing his concerns about the time I spent with my friends and even my workmates. Then came the big ask. One evening, Mike was going through our finances, a spreadsheet open on his laptop, his brow furrowed in concentration. "Babe, I've been thinking," he started, not looking up from the screen. "It would make more sense if I managed our finances. Just hand over your account details." I hesitated, surprised. "What? Why? I've been handling my finances since forever. It's just easier this way. I can keep track of our spending and savings. Plus, it's what a husband does, right?" he said, finally looking up at me with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. I felt a chill, but nodded, unsure. "Okay, if you think it's best." From then on, Mike took control. He decided where we went, what we did on weekends, and how we spent our money. If I suggested something different, he'd shoot it down. "No, that's not a good idea," he'd dismiss without discussion. As months passed, I found myself fading into the background of my own life. My friends stopped calling so much, knowing I'd likely say no. My world shrank to what Mike approved, and the vibrant, independent woman I once was began to disappear. I didn't even recognize myself anymore. Living near Mike and his parents seemed ideal at first, like having a close-knit family just next door. But reality bit hard and fast. His mom, Nancy, was a sweet talker with a controlling twist, and his dad, Frank, was just as invasive, treating our place like it was his own. One chilly evening, I was just getting home from a long day at work, my mind on the thousand things I still had to do, when Nancy called. Her voice was sugary sweet at first. "Jenna, darling, have you started dinner yet? Mike must be starving after his hard day," she cooed over the phone. "Actually, Nancy, I just walked in. Dinner's gonna be a bit late tonight," I replied, trying not to let my frustration show. Her tone flipped cold as ice. "Well, I hope Mike doesn't have to wait too long. A man needs his dinner on time, you know." It wasn't just the dinner comments. Nancy believed Mike should be pampered because his job was supposedly more demanding, despite us both working full-time. Her idea of fairness was skewed wildly in her son's favor. I was expected to handle everything else, cooking, cleaning, and then some. It didn't stop at our home either. Nancy had me over at their place regularly, pushing a broom or a mop into my hands the moment I stepped through the door. And Frank? He was no better. Weekends were his domain apparently. He'd show up at our house first thing Saturday morning, remote in hand, ready to take over the living room. The TV volume cranked so high it made the windows rattle. He'd settle in like a king. "Jenna, where's the beer? I thought you'd have stocked up for the weekend," Frank would bellow from his makeshift throne. "It's in the fridge, Frank," I'd call out, trying to hide my annoyance. Frank would grumble something under his breath about kids these days as he raided the refrigerator, leaving a trail of crumbs and empty bottles in his wake. Mike never said a word against it, always shrugging off my complaints. It was exhausting. Between my job, keeping our home, and catering to the whims of my in-laws, I was stretched thin. I began to lose pieces of myself, my time, and my sanity to their endless demands. Things at work took a sharp turn when my company decided to absorb a smaller firm. The accounting department there was a mess, a tangled web of inaccuracies and outdated systems. It fell on me to sort it all out, which meant long hours and even more stress. Coming home late became the norm rather than the exception. One particularly grueling evening, I got home to find Mike lounging on the sofa, flipping through channels, the dinner table untouched and empty. "Where's dinner? You know I get hungry after work," he complained without even looking my way. I dropped my bag, my patience worn thin. "Mike, you know what's been going on at work. You were here first, why couldn't you have made something?" He laughed, a harsh, mocking sound that filled the room. "Me, cook dinner? That's women's work, Jenna. I'm not about to start playing house husband." I felt a surge of anger. We agreed, before we got married, there'd be no men's or women's jobs. "We're supposed to be in this together," I shot back, my voice rising. Mike's face darkened, and he stood up abruptly.